It was supposed to be a normal interview. A simple television appearance, another promotional night, another set of well-chosen words spoken under warm studio lights. Something ordinary, something predictable, exactly the kind of controlled environment a celebrity like Demet Özdemir had perfected navigating over the years. She knew how to smile, how to dodge, how to give enough without giving too much. She had done this hundreds of times. But that night, something felt different the moment she walked into the studio. Maybe it was the atmosphere, maybe it was the tension in the air, maybe it was something inside her she no longer had the strength to suppress. Whatever it was, she stepped onto that stage not as the untouchable star the world knew, but as a woman who was finally tired of hiding. The interviewer started gently, warming up the conversation with light questions about her new projects, her life between Istanbul and abroad, her future plans. She answered them smoothly, without hesitation. The audience laughed when they were supposed to. Everything was flowing exactly as expected, until he asked that question. The one no one saw coming. The one that would mark the beginning of the storm. Demet, he said, leaning forward, there has always been one rumor the public could never let go. Something people still debate years later. There is footage, behind-the-scenes clips, fan analyses, endless speculation, but no clear answer. So let me ask you directly tonight, during that famous scene, the one the whole world remembers, were the emotions between you and Ken ever real? The room froze. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Demet's lips parted slightly, not in shock, but as if she had been waiting for this moment. The audience leaned forward, the cameras zoomed in, the crew members tensed behind the monitors. Everyone expected her to smile politely and say something diplomatic. Something safe. Something neutral. She could have said we were just acting. She could have laughed it off. She could have changed the subject. But instead, she didn't break eye contact with the interviewer. Her voice lowered, as if she was finally speaking directly to the truth she had run from for so long. There was a moment, she said calmly. A wave of murmurs swept through the studio. The interviewer blinked, trying to hide his surprise. He hadn't expected honesty. He hadn't expected her to step into dangerous territory. But she didn't stop. There was a scene, she continued. We were close. Too close. And suddenly, something changed. It wasn't acting anymore. I felt something. Something real. No one dared breathe. Journalists in the studio exchanged alarmed glances. Even the lighting technician stepped closer to his monitor as if afraid to miss a single micro-expression. And what happened then? The interviewer pressed gently. Demet inhaled, her eyes glowing with a mixture of vulnerability and strength, the look of someone who had finally decided she had nothing left to lose. I wanted to kiss him, she said. So I did. The studio exploded. Gasps, whispers, hands covering mouths, crew members rushing to producers for instructions. The interviewer froze for a moment, stunned, unsure whether he had just witnessed the biggest confession of her career or the biggest mistake. But Demet didn't flinch. Her calmness contrasted violently with the chaos around her. It wasn't in the script, she explained. It wasn't planned. I didn't think. I just followed what I felt. And with those words, she detonated a story the internet would not recover from anytime soon. Within seconds, social media caught fire. Clips were uploaded, edited, slowed down, replayed frame by frame. Fans from Turkey, Italy, Spain, Brazil, every corner of the world, began dissecting her confession, analyzing every detail of her body language, comparing it to old behind-the-scenes footage. But the biggest question was, how would Yaman react? And that's where the story took its first dramatic turn. Ken was in Rome the moment the confession aired. According to someone who was with him that evening, he had been having dinner with a small group of friends. His phone started buzzing nonstop. At first, he ignored it, he was used to attention, rumors, fan messages. But the buzzing didn't stop. It intensified. Message after message. call after call. His sister. His mother. His manager. His closest friends. A famous Italian presenter inviting him to appear on air that very night. Confused, he finally unlocked his phone. The first message he opened was a link to the clip, Demet on live TV, looking straight into the camera, saying, "I wanted to kiss him, so I did." He froze. Not dramatically, silently, intensely. His expression emptied. His breath got stuck somewhere between disbelief and memory. He replayed the clip once. Twice. 3 times. Each time, his reaction sank deeper, like a stone dropping slowly through water. Because the moment she described wasn't a distant memory to him. It wasn't something vague or blurred by time. He remembered every detail of it. The heat of the lights. The quiet just before they touched. The way her eyelashes fluttered when she leaned closer. The hesitation, and then the decision. He remembered the kiss. But most of all, he remembered what he felt during it. It hadn't been acting for him either. He had never admitted that to anyone. Not even himself, not fully. He had pushed it down, buried it beneath work, distance, pride, misunderstandings, anything that kept him from acknowledging the truth. But hearing her say it out loud shook the foundation of all those years of silence. Meanwhile, the world was losing its mind. Fan accounts posted old behind-the-scenes clips showing the two actors laughing, brushing hands, exchanging looks that lasted a little too long. People wrote things like, "We saw this chemistry. We weren't imagining it." Others argued that Demet had just reignited old drama. Some insisted this was closure. Others believed it was the beginning of something unresolved. But while the world was screaming, Demet quietly left the studio. Backstage, producers tried to give her advice, warn her about headlines, prepare statements. But she didn't seem scared. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She sat in her dressing room with an expression that could only be described as relief. She had told the truth. Not a scandal. Not a PR strategy. Just truth. Her team whispered urgently about damage control, but Demet didn't respond. She stared at the mirror, as if seeing the woman she had become. Someone who no longer wanted to hide behind polite smiles and carefully edited memories. Meanwhile, Ken walked out of the restaurant, barely hearing the chatter behind him. He wandered through the Roman streets, his heartbeat loud, his thoughts louder. He didn't care about headlines. He didn't care about gossip channels. He didn't care about trending hashtags. He cared about one thing. The feeling that had returned inside him, uninvited and undeniable. He took out his phone. Found her name. Hesitated. He could still turn back. He could stay silent, pretend nothing happened, let the internet devour the moment. But for the first time in years, he didn't want to. He pressed the call button. At that exact moment, Demet's phone lit up with his name. She froze. Her manager's eyes widened. "Are you going to answer?" he whispered. She didn't speak. She didn't move. The phone kept ringing. Her heart pounded. Her mind spun in spirals. On the 4th ring, she answered. She didn't say hello. He didn't either. There was silence, the kind of silence that exists only between two people who once felt something they never talked about. It was dense, emotional, almost electric. Finally, Ken spoke. "Demet, why now?" Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with truth. "Because I was tired of pretending it didn't happen." He exhaled sharply. "It happened," he said. "And you weren't alone in feeling it." Her eyes filled with tears. Not sadness, recognition. All those years she had doubted herself, and now, finally, she had confirmation she wasn't crazy for feeling that moment changed something deep inside her. She asked the question that had haunted her for years. "Then why didn't you say anything? Why did you act like it meant nothing?" He leaned back against the cold wall of a Roman building, closing his eyes. Because I was scared. Because it felt real. Too real. And I didn't know what to do with that. She didn't expect such honesty. It shattered something inside her and healed something else at the same time. We moved on, she whispered. Or at least, we tried. He gave a soft, painful laugh. Did we, though? Silence again, heavy, meaningful, intimate. What does this mean now? She asked softly. It means, he said carefully, that maybe it's time we stop running from it. Her breath caught. He continued, voice steadier now. I don't want to talk about this on the phone. Not like this. What do you want? She asked. I'm coming to Istanbul. She sat upright, shocked. When? Tonight. The final hour of the night stretched between them, full of tension, hope, fear, possibility. And before hanging up, he whispered the sentence that would soon leak to the world. The kiss wasn't just yours, Demet. It was ours. That night, while social media continued its chaotic firestorm, while tabloids crafted sensational headlines, while fans fought online about theories, something quietly shifted between the two people at the center of it all. For the first time in years, they were moving toward each other instead of away. And the world, whether ready or not, was about to witness what truly happens when a truth buried for so long finally demands to be faced. As the night deepened in Istanbul, Demet found herself pacing slowly across her living room, unable to sit still. The quiet was almost suffocating. Every few minutes she checked her phone, not for notifications, not for headlines, but for something far more personal. She half expected another call, a message, anything that would force her to confront the reality of what was happening. But the screen remained dark. The silence felt heavier than the confession she had made on live television. She wrapped her arms around herself, not from the cold, but from the overwhelming rush of emotions she had tried to bury for years. Everything she had avoided, everything she had ignored, everything she had convinced herself to forget, had resurfaced in one night. And now, the man at the center of it all was literally flying toward her. Meanwhile, somewhere above the clouds between Rome and Istanbul, Ken sat in the dimmed cabin of the plane, staring at the city lights drifting beneath him like scattered embers. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't think straight, and yet a strange sense of clarity washed over him. For the first time in years, he wasn't hiding behind excuses or distance. He wasn't pretending the past was just a script, a scene, a job. He wasn't letting fear dictate his choices. Instead, he felt something unfamiliar. Almost like hope. He leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes, and instantly the memory of that moment, the kiss they never talked about, flooded through him again. Not as a scene from the past, but as something alive, vivid, painfully real. He remembered the exact warmth of her breath, the way time seemed to slow, the way she looked at him with something raw in her eyes, something he had been too afraid to name. And then he remembered the split second before the kiss, when he could have stepped back, could have kept the line between fiction and reality intact, but didn't. That was the part he had never admitted. Not to her. Not to himself. Not to anyone. He opened his eyes and whispered under his breath, it meant something. It always did. Back in Istanbul, the city slept, but Demet didn't. She moved to the window and looked out at the quiet street. Her phone buzzed suddenly, making her heart jump, but it was only a message from her manager asking if she was okay. She ignored it. Okay didn't even begin to describe what she was feeling. Relief, fear, nostalgia, excitement, confusion, everything tangled into a knot she couldn't untie. She sat on the couch, leaned back, and buried her face in her hands. Why does it feel like that moment is happening all over again? She whispered to herself. She remembered the moment perfectly. The lights, the heat of the set, the smell of the studio, the closeness between them. She remembered how her heart had pounded, how her hands had trembled. She remembered thinking, if I don't do this now, I'll regret it forever. And she remembered how, for just one breath, time had stopped. Even now, years later, the memory had enough power to shake her. Tonight had only proved that she had never fully let it go. And now that Ken was on his way, she didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. At the airport, as the plane began its descent, Ken felt his chest tighten. He wasn't nervous, not in the way he usually felt before premieres or interviews, but in a way that felt painfully human. Vulnerable. Honest. He didn't know what he and Demet would say to each other. He didn't know if this would end in healing or heartbreak. He didn't know if coming tonight was the right decision. But he did know one thing with absolute certainty: he couldn't keep running from this. Not anymore. The plane touched down. He inhaled sharply, as if preparing for impact, not with the runway, but with the truth. He stepped off, moving quickly through the quiet terminal, avoiding the curious glances of airport staff. A driver was waiting for him at the exit. Ken tossed his bag into the back seat and slid in silently. "Home?" the driver asked. "No," Ken said. "Take me to Beck." The driver nodded, and the car pulled into the empty streets, the city lights reflecting onto the windshield like scattered memories. As the vehicle moved through Istanbul, Ken's pulse quickened with each passing block. He could already picture her standing at the door, unsure of what to say. He could imagine the look in her eyes, the same look she had given him years ago before everything changed. At the same time, in her apartment, Demet felt something shift inside her. An instinct, a quiet realization that he was close. She stood up, smoothed her hair, then stopped, suddenly aware of how absurd that was. Why was she nervous? Why did she care how she looked? Why did she feel like a younger version of herself again, waiting for a moment she thought would never come back? She walked to the mirror, stared at her own reflection, and whispered, "Just breathe." But her pulse refused to slow. When the black car finally turned onto her street, Ken saw the familiar building rise into view, illuminated by the street lamp. His breath caught. This wasn't a movie. This wasn't a scene. This wasn't acting. It was real. Raw. Unpredictable. As the car rolled to a stop, he closed his eyes for one last moment of courage. Tonight, for the first time in years, they would stand face to face. And the unanswered question that had lived between them all this time was finally going to demand an answer.